Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 5th, Cinco de Mayo, at least in California and the Southwest. That's a big deal. I'm sure it's much bigger in Mexico, but not so big a deal for the market. And again, see, we're still in this sideways action. We've had some short increases, lifting things up, but right now we got that cross below with the orange, which we need for a reset to start to see a breakout move. It's a little early. We've started to see midterm buyers coming back into it, along with short-term buyers, and they're just crossing above the red DOC right here. You can see minus 236, minus 213. The green is just below. So this is right in time for the funds to start looking for some action to get into. Of course, there have been some headwinds with some of the headlines. We'll take a look at oil. That was a big move, which was no surprise to us, but seemed to shock everybody else, which that's okay. No complaints there. From the NASDAQ, obviously, a little softness as well. This is where earnings and stuff start to come through, and it's a mixed bag, but certainly the euro. This was off of news about Greece potentially getting some debt relief, which will certainly take that off the table as far as being a upheaval threat, which has been the biggest drain, I think, to the euro is contagion effect. Doesn't change the issues that are growing in Italy and things like that. And of course, France Sunday, this is a pre-buy on the expectation that Macron wins easily. Of course, there's always the potential for upsets, as we saw in America, and what that can lead to. But if that did happen, you would see some extraordinary upheaval in the market, because that would be so outside what the expectation is that it would certainly throw things into a havoc situation. Decline here in Treasury is not surprising from that standpoint, because the Fed has assured that they're going to continue, regardless of economic conditions, continue to raise rates. So they are definitely attempting to put the brakes on ahead of any move. And interesting, because you don't have any inflationary pressure. In fact, this is purely deflationary, and that they're raising rates in a deflationary environment is exactly what led to the Depression, if you go back to the studies, but that's a whole different topic. It's interesting, but I understand they're trying to normalize things after the huge quantitative easing and trying to pull back on some of that money that's out there. But this is not a surprise. We looked at where this broke down. We knew that this rally wasn't even going to be all that great, simply because the supply capability is just enormous right now, and it's only getting better with technology. China is putting a lot of commodities under a lot of pressure. We had to sell way back. That wasn't a surprise to us. We were just waiting for a reset situation. We got the oversold. Now really into a peak move of it. We're getting close. We're in that minus 80 category. This can go a little deeper than like with regular securities. Usually right around this point you get an automatic turnaround press, but at this particular point, gold and commodities sometimes can go to a little bit more of an extreme, but certainly getting to a point where there's going to be just a little bit of buyback reaction to it. Let's shrink this down a little bit. This was the 5K action. We ended up with a little short signal here and came down to these. Now, see, this is an interesting one. We had the reset number 5. I think this is just like the smallest of reaches. It was minus 1673. I can't get it to show up there. There we go on the screen. Versus 1652. It was enough to give a little bit of a buy, which was still decent. Just couldn't sustain it. You ended up with a DOC spread pretty quickly off there, and the steel went right below at the same time. Now, this was an interesting one where we dipped below the red on a rising red with the orange coming underneath, but we did so at overbought. And sure enough, it didn't take but a brief moment for that to reset. Typical play on this one was I just utilized the ABM when we dipped below the yellow. That was my new buy above level from the short that I was in, so it would have turned around covered. And then once it dipped below the green right here, that was another option to put it in there. And then I just trailed it lower, and sure enough, we ended up with 5 came here. We ended up with oversold at the number 1. I usually start to tighten up my short stop at that particular point because you tend to get those little pop reactions, and sometimes you can short back into them if you don't get the reset. But we got the reset, popped us right back to the even spot, and pretty much held flat right through there. And you can see that we've been in that mild zone. We're now finally got into an oversold, but you're sort of in a dead spot here with the orange. So pre-market is still working out some of the kinks and probably going to retest this low. That would be the dip below the red line right down here from the extreme histogram. And I think the low almost matched that target number right on the money, exactly 2376 exactly. And then boom, bounced right off of it. No, that's where those levels tend to come from, their exact relationship factors, and that's typically how the market tends to work. Sometimes you get an overdraft that goes through them when there's extra stops at that point, but when you get a reversal off of it, you tend to get the pop back because it's an indication that they bought up the supply going down, hit their target, and boom, that was their signal to turn around relief, boom. So all in all, good stuff. As always though, I'll continue to put the charts up. Trade well.